All right, guys, it is Monday, August 16th, 2021, and I'm just getting my day started here. What I've been doing early this morning, trying to wake up, I have been on the internet. I've been basically trying to find parts that I need for the transmission. The transmission that I'm going to use in the 55 four-door project is a short tail 350 turbo trans. It's a C model, so it is electronic, which doesn't really matter. It doesn't need to be hooked up. But anyway, this is it here. This was a good used transmission, and then I got rid of it, and then I wound up getting it back rather quickly, but it took me 2 years to go pick it up from the guy's place. And anyway, I think when he unloaded it, he probably pulled it off the back of the tailgate and let it fall. It's kind of jammed the shaft over into the tranny case, and it won't shift, so I need to take the valve body out, inspect all that. Hopefully nothing's broken. But the speedometer housing's broken off. The kickdown cable was broken off, and the dipstick tube was kinked over to where you couldn't even get the dipstick out of it. So when I got it home, I pulled the pan off, make sure no water was in it because it was left outside. The pan was crushed on one side, and the flange was kind of tweaked, so I went ahead and bought a new trans pan, just a little $25 black one with a drain plug in it. I'd also taken off the tail shaft here with the 4 bolts and removed it because the splines were really rusty from sitting outside uncovered. So I cleaned them up with a wire wheel real good. Anyway, it's just going to be a mess. It was, a good tranny. Now it's got all kinds of issues I've got to repair. But anyway, he had give me, the guy that I'd done the deal with, he does transmissions on the side. He's a really awesome guy. He gave me all this stuff to take the valve body off and all that. And he had a few seals and stuff. But what's kind of funny is I actually have a list in a notebook of parts to get from O'Reilly's, and it was a front pump seal and a tail shaft seal and a shift shaft seal, and there they are right there. So that just saved me, probably about 25, 30 bucks probably in seals. But anyway, I've got, he also gave me a shift kit that's for a 350 and a 350C. I've never used one of these before, but he said he's put a lot of them in and he likes them. So basically just firms up shifts a little bit. So I will put that in as well since I have it. It's all brand new, still in the sealed package, has the drill bits and all the parts, instructions and all. Excuse me. Anyway, here's the dipstick out of that 350C, and the mounting bracket that went on the transmission bell housing is broken off. There's a hole right there from where it got peeled off there, but it got kinked, and I had actually wrote on it 350C from 4-door Buick Century. And this is the dipstick itself out of the tube. So a long time ago, I had bought an aftermarket chrome dipstick for a Turbo 350 and put it in a rebuilt Turbo 350 that I had rebuilt. And I started driving the car, and it didn't live very long. And I noticed it was sliding in gear and everything. Come to find out, it was not reading the correct fluid level in it. And when I took the transmission back to the transmission shop, he told me that it was burned up because it had been run low on fluid. So the tranny builder actually gave me an old original Turbo 350 dipstick and stuff, and we compared the length of the dipstick where it goes to the tube, and it was off. So I learned a lesson on these old $12 cheapy chrome piles of crap right there. It cost me several $100s to have that transmission redone again. So what I've done now, because I don't really want to buy a new transmission dipstick, a chrome one especially, because even though they're cheap, it might not be the right one. So with this original one and the tab broken off, if you've ever tried to straighten these out that are kinked, you never really get the kinks out of them. And the dipstick's always a pain in the butt to get in and out. It's also bent down here. So what I did was I dug around in my stuff, and I had a tube here, and it did not have a dipstick in it. Anyway, what I did, this one's actually shorter because the V6 Buick style, when they come down, they're actually a little taller, and they actually lean forward a little bit more for those. What I've got is a small block V8 with a Turbo 350 now, so this is the accurate one for it. So what I done was I put the dipstick back in the original tube, and I used a caliper, and I measured off the bottom of it here from the end of the dipstick to the end of the tube, because these two are identical right here in length. So at that point, I put this back in this dipstick, and I measured how far out this one went, because obviously this dipstick's too long. So I drew a Sharpie line there, and I drew a Sharpie line there. That's what was hanging out. So whatever this measurement is right here is what I'm going to cut out up here. I'm going to cut that much out of that dipstick tube, and I'm going to weld it back together. Now I'm going to leave about, I don't know, 3/8 of an inch, and I'm going to drill a hole in it. And that way when I overlap it on the top of the other one, I can plug weld it, but I'm also going to perimeter weld that on there and then grind it down a little bit. So it should be good, because this is steel, you know. But I wanted to keep my original, this deal here, because that basically locates this in the center of the tube instead of this coming out you know, at an angle out of the end of it. So anyway, at that point, I know I'll have the correct reading on the dipstick, and I'll have the proper tube for a small block. So that's kind of cool. I did look at Summit a while ago for a few of the parts this thing's gonna need. And I can give you a little tip here. Vacuum modulators on a Turbo 350. This has happened to me a couple of times in the past. I always replace them. If it's a transmission, I always replace it, because you can get a brand new one for about $15. Summit has them over there for $15, and they are adjustable. You can put a little pocket flat blade screwdriver down on the end of it and adjust your shift point. But anyway, I am buying a new one, because what I have had happen is I guess the diaphragm goes out in it or something, and it will actually pull transmission fluid through it, because you have a vacuum line going to that, going to, you know, manifold vacuum on your engine. It will suck it down into your engine and burn it, and your car will smoke like a freight train. So anyway, you'll think, you know, your engine's shot, you've dropped a valve, you know, something bad has happened, broke a ring or something. But anyway, it was a $15 vacuum modulator, so I always just replace them. Anyway, so I'm going to get a modulator. I'm going to get the other thing I got to check is the speedometer housing. This one was cracked, and then I got to messing with it, and it broke off. I read a listing for a new speedometer housing for a Turbo 350C, and it had said that 700R4 fit as well. So if that's true, I am in good shape, because this is a 700R4 core that I got from my cousin Eric. This thing's blown up. It needs completely rebuilt. But anyway, I can't see because of all the grease, although I do have another 700R4 with mechanical speed over there. So if that's the case, that'll save me money fixing that. But what I'll do is basically clean up this transmission real nice, and then I'm just going to spray paint it with some Duplicolor cast aluminum spray paint. It is their engine line, so it's, you know, good for heat, and it's a little bit more durable. But anyway, it'll just make it look a little cleaner. I'm not going to do a superb job on it. I'm just going to clean it up, paint it, get the grease off of it. But I'm going to put a rear tail shaft seal in it, all new speedometer O-ring, and the little seal that goes on the speedometer plastic piece there. I'm going to pull the governor out, clean it real good with carb cleaner, because they will be stuck in first gear if you don't on a tranny it's set for a long time. I'm going to put a new front pump seal in it, and a filter kit, which Summit had a Wix filter and gasket set for $8.99, which is pretty awesome. I think O'Reilly's was $13, so that'll save me a couple of bucks. What else? I'm going to put a new shift shaft seal in it, so it, you know, basically at the end of the day, it should be sealed up pretty good. But anyway, a lot of work to do for that thing before I get to it. But right now, I'm just basically trying to figure out what parts I need. It's pretty cool. He gave me these extra seals and stuff. That'll save me a little money. There is a shift shaft seal in there. I was hoping there was an O-ring in there for that tail shaft, because I did remove it to clean the splines on that. They were rusty from it sitting outside. But that transmission was in good shape. The fluid was beautiful red in it. So I'm pretty confident in that being okay for a little 305. You know, if I get it in the car and it doesn't last very long, I'll just overhaul it myself. The rebuild kits for a Turbo 350 are rather cheap. So, I mean, if anything, you'll just end up with another video. You know what I mean? Anyway, guys, I'm going to go ahead and cut out. I've got some stuff I got to do, a little bit more research, and it's time to come out here and start getting greasy, you know what I mean? But trying to figure out what I'm going to do on the paint side of the car, because I added up last night everything that I've bought so far, and I'm almost at my limit of my budget I had. So it kind of sucks. But the way I'm looking at it is, yeah, I don't really mind, because at this point, pretty much all the suspension will be all new, and the engine and transmission should all be, you know, cleaned up and resealed, and those should be good to go for get, you know, a lot of miles out of them still yet. So at least the heart and the foundation should be in good shape. All that make it pretty stuff can come later. Because if anything, I can just, you know, go out there with a DA and just sand the crap out of that car, do some body work, some new seam sealer on the firewall, and just put primer on it, put it back together, and drive it, you know. I don't care. I've drove cars in primer for years. So, anyway, I'm going to get to work. Thanks for watching. Alright, so there's my little Sharpie mark. It's pretty much about where it needs to be. So that should read accurate. I think that those dipsticks may be spring steel. Maybe, I'm not sure. I did weld it. I did grind it just a little bit, but I didn't try to grind it all flat and roll the end and make it all nice. I just, you know, it's good enough. It's going to be inside a tube, who cares? But I've got the accurate reading, and with all the marks on the end and everything. I'd actually drilled a hole in one of them because I overlapped it a little bit. That amount right there that I drew with a Sharpie. And I overlapped it that amount right there. And then I drilled a hole in it with a drill bit right here. And then I used a countersink bit to countersink it a little bit, and then I plug welded it. And then I put a weld on all four sides, so since it's overlapped. So it should hold, I think. You know, if it breaks after a time, I'll just weld it back together. It ain't a big deal. Or just, you know, try to track down another dipstick tube and dipstick in the meantime. Or at least a dipstick, since I have an accurate measurement of the length I need now. But anyway, so that was kind of cool. So what I ended up doing, when I went to set this up to weld it, I used a pair of vice grips. You've probably seen that in where I was welding it. But I clamped the vice grips off on one side, and then I used my speed square here, and I stuck right up like that, and I pushed on both ends because I had the vice grips on it pretty tight, so I could still kind of bend it if I needed to. But anyway, I got it up there and it's square all the way across, so it's nice and straight. It probably wouldn't have mattered. I could have got it off a little bit and it'd probably still work in that big ass tube, but anyway, I think it's pretty good. Let's hope anyway, huh? It'll work. So basically that saved me a little money. The good thing is the rubber seal up in that cup there is still nice, so that's always a good thing. I do have a new seal for the bottom of that. Oh, the other thing I need to do is modify the bracket where it bolts to the bell housing. So I guess I need to build that now. Dang it, thought I was done. Alright, so now the dipstick itself is cut down. It should be reading correctly. Anyway, I'd put the seal in and then put the dipstick in there. Man, that's a tight fit. And this is a new seal. I don't want to tear it up. So anyway, I took a piece of strap there. I had to build a new strap because the other one didn't fit. Anyway, I took a piece of steel strap, drilled a hole in it, rounded the end, and then I bolted it on there with a nut and bolt. Anyway, I kind of twisted it and I rolled the edge around. I drilled 2 holes in it to plug weld it to where the existing strap, mounting strap was on it before. If you've ever tried to weld a dipstick tube, it's really thin metal, so it could blow holes, you know, and make a mess and then get a leak. So I put that strap over the existing one, so there was plenty of thickness of metal there to plug weld to. And then I just put a few little tacks here and there on it. And then I pulled it back off, and then I cut off the old one, and then I brought it back in and bolted back in, but I'm not going to put the seal in, but it's kind of where it needs to be, so hopefully. Should be. It's going straight up, so it should work pretty good. But anyway, that is a small block hole. It's a Unibel trans, so that one, and that one is your small block holes. So, all right, one project down. Didn't spend any money, though. Thanks for watching. All right, guys, I thought I was done there, but I'll go ahead and put this in just to finish it off before I upload the video. But I went ahead and sanded this thing all down real nice, and I painted it just with some Krylon satin black spray paint. It actually laid down real nice and looks good. I painted the dipstick head red. I painted it separate. I masked everything off under there, but anyway, I painted that red because most, newer cars, the transmission dipstick head is red. Just makes it easier to differentiate, you know what I mean? But it is now done, and I can put it up now. I don't really need to, put it in until tranny's all ready to go back into the car, but that's thinking with your dipstick.